I want to talk about a global pandemic. Something that's swept across the globe for the last century, ever since being created in a lab and released upon the public. Something that can be found in schools, parks, hospitals. Odds are you're surrounded by it right now. Talking about plastic. Plastic has revolutionized every single industry on the planet like nothing else has, mostly for the better. But there is a terrible cost that's associated with plastics that we all are going to have to pay, unless people are willing to start changing their habits or insisting on regulations before it's too late. When people say we live in a plastic world, all you have to do is look around. Cars, water pipes, bottles, bags, clothes, electronics, the list is endless. Everything is made of plastic or has plastic in it. That's why it's a $1 trillion industry. Most people use plastic every single day, a lot of the times without even knowing it. And yet most people, they have no idea of the deadly repercussions that plastics are wreaking on the world around us. Let's look at plastic purely from a waste perspective. According to the EPA, plastic waste in the U.S. accounts for about 13.2% of the annual waste, placing it third after paper and food. Well, 13.2, what is that? Well, that equates to 35 million tons of waste annually. Even though most plastics are recyclable, recycled plastic ranks 6th. It only makes up about 3% of all recycled products. And that right there is one of the major issues that needs to be addressed. All the plastic waste that's going into landfills. There's a website, ecoparts.com, and they list that the most common types of plastics that end up in landfills are plastic bottles and plastic bags. Plastic bottles on average are taking 450 years to decompose, while plastic bags can be anywhere from 10 to 1,000 years depending. It's one of the main reasons that landfills are not that effective is, yeah, sure, there's a lot of refuse that can be degraded, but it's stuffed inside of a plastic bag. Well, who cares about landfills though, right? Well, Environmental Health News' website, ehn.org, they've gathered all kinds of information from leading scientists that are studying the effects of plastics on our world right now. One of the major issues with plastics in landfills is that as plastic break down, they leach chemicals into the ground. These chemicals then they make their way into the groundwater sources and being consumed by people. Most of these chemicals, they're unregulated, some even unknown. Sure, there's government agencies that mandate if humans are going to consume something or if a product will carry food or drinks that for human consumption, that agencies like the FDA or the EPA, they have to look at the chemicals used and determine that a product is safe. Most plastics, they don't fall into these categories, and thus the companies are free to use any chemical makeup that they want, whatever can pad their bottom dollar. And besides, most of these plastics, they don't always make it into landfills or recycling centers. Let's talk about aquatic trash. National Geographic states that scientists have estimated there to be roughly 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic debris out in the ocean. Of that, almost 270,000 tons just floating on the surface. Not only is this incredibly lazy and disgusting, it's destroying entire aquatic ecosystems. Plastic debris is laced with chemicals, often ingested by marine animals, and it can injure or poison wildlife. EHN.org said that. Well, guess what? We humans, we're part of the wildlife. Fish are eating these plastics full of toxins, and then we're eating the fish, along with birds, larger aquatic life, other animals. So there's plastic in our water, there's plastic in our food. Even the containers holding our food and our water are made of plastic, all filled with chemicals, all leaching into our bodies. It's really no wonder that studies that they show that phthalates, which are plasticides, are used in the manufacturing of plastic. They're found in 8 out of every 10 babies, and nearly all adults. The CDC also reports that 93% of people, they have detectable levels of BPA in their urine, which is another plastic chemical. Chemicals added to plastics are absorbed by human bodies. Some of these compounds have been found to alter hormones or have other potential health effects. The chemicals are the second major issue. The truth is that the research, it's just not there. Plastics are too new, health studies are just beginning. But with an industry that's making so much money, of course legislation is dragging their feet. In the meantime, toxic chemicals are still being used and released into the environment. There are things in the works to help taper this. Some companies are only using recycled plastics, which increases the demand for recycled plastic, forcing new recycling plants to pop up. There's also research being done on biodegradable plastics made from plant-based instead of petroleum. But until then, there are two things that you can do to help save the world. First, limit buying plastic when you can. Instead of plastic food dishes, buy glass or stainless steel. If you must buy plastic, try to buy something made from recycled plastic and then recycle it. The other potentially life-saving thing you can do is call your governor or member of Congress. Ask them why every manufacturing company does not have to submit every chemical that they use in production to the EPA or FDA to determine potential health risks. Let's try to go back to living in a world where babies are born without plastic inside them.